I'm ready
Hello.
whenever you are.
All right. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I am Joe Prisco. I am joined by Mark Armour, who is our athletic trainer here at Dillard. So, Mark, how are you doing today?
Hi, Joe. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
No problem. We just completed our last semester. I wanted to kind of get you under the microscope a little bit. As some questions of what went on this last semester, especially in your area. So, from an athletic training standpoint, what did it take to get the gym ready and our athletes on the floor for this last semester?
I think it took a full team effort between the coaches, our student athletes, and our sports medicine department. Um, we really did a lot of education initially, just letting our student athletes and coaches understand what's going on with COVID and how we can mitigate and protect ourselves from contracting COVID. As far as the gym, we made sure that everything was cleaned, spaced appropriately, made sure that our student athletes were wearing their masks when they weren't participating, our coaches wearing their masks. And then we were trying to really decrease the amount of people that were actually in the gym in the facility at the time of use. So the less people that we have intermingling, the better off we'd be.
Okay. So before that first competition, what was your level of nervousness? First competition, first practice. Did you have any, or were you very, in your mind, you knew that everything was planned out very accordingly?
Yeah, I don't think I was nervous, especially from our standpoint. It was more so just curious and concerned about what our opponents may be doing or not doing. I think that from our standpoint, we were doing everything possible to limit the risk of exposure. Um, and then, reaching out to our opponents and their sports medicine team and gathering their information about, what their procedures and protocols were and talking to them, it kind of helped ease a little bit of tension that not just myself, but, the coaches and other athletes might have had as well. But as far as nervousness, it was just another day at work.
No more so than any other given day. You
Yeah.
felt the level of preparation and all the training you did and everything else like that. And speaking of training, we'll kind of get off the record a little bit here or off track. But I know that you, over the summer, were very much involved in the hospital system helping out. So
Right.
a little bit about that before we get into our next question.
Yeah, I worked on the front lines. I was working in the actual hospital, whether it be temperature screening employees and patients that walked in the facility, or actually COVID swabbing and doing testing um, for patients that were coming into different clinics. I had my hand in a little bit of a couple of things. It was kind of cool because I got to practice more of just regular medicine and not sports medicine. So it was a completely different dynamic. And being in the hospital setting was a very different dynamic as well.
Okay, awesome. So now, as you kind of look, you've been the athletic trainer here for a while, and you've been an athletic trainer for a number of years. As you look at this year, the additional steps you're taking compared to previous years, can you kind of go through like additional things that you're doing like this year that you hadn't done previously in order to keep the athletes safe?
Yeah, I think one of the major things that we do is we collect a lot more data. We pre-screen our athletes daily via email and an online website that we use. That's probably one of the biggest components of difference, just getting that information, that daily information and feedback from the student athletes to kind of know how they're feeling and what's going on with them. The temperature screening stuff, that's different as well. As far as the sanitation and cleaning, I think that we've been fortunate to do that already in our space. And we just had to take what we did in our athletic training facility and move it out into the locker rooms, move it out into the court and any other shared spaces that our student athletes and coaches would be. So I think that was an additional step, just moving it out. But as far as the actual cleaning and sanitation and that kind of stuff, these are things that we were already doing in our athletic training facility. Wearing masks and policing masks was probably also another really big ordeal. That with just continuous education when people don't wear their mask properly or not wearing their mask at all was a major difference, and that was probably one of the more stressful situations.
Okay. Did you have to come up with like an individual checklist? Because I know there's so much going on. You have so much on your plate. That way you're making sure, like, all right, this is all getting done. I'm not doing anything. I'm making sure that every step is followed exactly the way it should be.
Well, I don't necessarily individually use checklists. We do have a certain protocol that, hey, A, B, C, D, all this needs to be completed. I didn't quite use a checklist because I guess I'm the type of person that once I do it once, I can do it over and over and over again. But we do have a manual. We do have our protocols, not just for Dillard University, but through Ochsner Sports Medicine, through the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, and through the NAIA. So there are a plethora of documents and information that we can utilize to follow to make sure we're doing things. And then we have our own script here that we just try to, like you say, it is kind of a check off, making sure that we're doing A, B, and C every time we're having any kind of function or participation going on in our building.
Okay. And I know that you mentioned that, like the seating, you've separated more than 6 feet on the benches and whatnot. Did you guys come up with like individual like water bottles for people, towels, crates, that sort of thing?
So what we did was we kind of took the NBA model because they had a lot of success in the bubble, and we made sure we spread our benches out where everybody's 6 feet apart. Everybody has their individual water, their individual towel, and they are responsible for that throughout the course of the game. We can help facilitate filling up water. Very few people touch the actual water system that we're using, and then we make sure that they have what they need to be properly hydrated. They stay in an assigned seat, and then when they're not participating, we have them with their mask on. So we try to utilize a lot of what the NBA was doing as far as their game day preparation and setup, and I think we had a good bit of success with it.
Excellent, excellent. So let's see. As you look at home games are one thing, it's like kind of more of a controlled environment. And then in comparison to like road games, because I know that our team's gone on the road a couple times over the course of the semester. So what's some differences that you've had to do in preparing for home games compared to the road games?
Again, one of the biggest things we do for the road games is before I get off the bus, I try to just reiterate, hey, we're going into a different space. We don't know exactly what they do or how they do things. So let's make sure we're taking every step to protect ourselves. So we still bring our own water. We still have individual towels. Depending on where we go, they may or may not have the bench separated, kind of like in that NBA style, but it's one of the things that we're pushing. And then we limit our contact with the other team as much as possible. Before our team actually even leaves the locker room, I make sure that all the benches are sprayed down and everything is wiped and clean. We try to make sure that everything in the locker room is wiped and clean. And then we kind of create our own little bubble for ourselves at visiting teams because, again, we don't know what they're doing. We know that every state and every city might have different masking protocols or different capacity protocols. So we kind of really keep to ourselves as much as possible during the competition. You know, we stayed away from the high fives and the meeting and greeting with the teams and even go and shake the refs' hands and that kind of thing. Because, you know, as much as we want to be about good sportsmanship, we want to be more so about health and safety of our student athletes.
Excellent, excellent. So as you kind of assess, like, you know, like our individuals on our team, how have they done with hand sanitizer and masking up and making sure that they're doing their part to stay safe?
I mean, it was a learning curve. It was a really big learning curve, but with our coaches on board and our administrators on board, you know, when everybody is doing the right things, it makes the student athletes see, all right, well, let's do our part too. You know, everybody wants to continue to play. So it's one of those education things. Hey, if you want to play, you have to do X, Y, Z. which means, all right, when you're stepping in the gym, let's get this hand sanitizer. Let's make sure everything is nice and clean. I need you with your mask on. And then, you know, that was a learning curve in itself. Just when can we wear our mask? When do we not have to wear our mask? Can I take my mask off? Oh, I'm dying. I can't breathe with my mask on. And then just like any other training, you just get used to it and adapt to it as we go along. So the response from the student athletes has been really well.
Okay. And how about, I know that, with equipment, with volleyballs, basketballs, like, like additional steps are taken to sanitize those as well. And a lot of that goes through your department. So what are some things that have been done in that regard?
So we partnered with the student managers for each team, and everybody has their own sanitation, sprays and towels and that kind of thing. So it's like, hey, after practice, we need you all to wipe all these balls down, or make sure you collect everything, make sure you're wearing your gloves, and then, wash and clean things appropriately, wash and dry things appropriately. So the student managers have been a really big help in combating just the sanitation and cleaning aspect. And they kind of know what their protocols of what they need to be doing as far as wiping things down, wearing gloves, and what solutions that they need to be using as well.
Okay. And, we talked about the athletes individually. How are the coaching staffs adjusted to, the hand sanitizer and wearing masks?
I mean, the coaches want to protect themselves just as much as we want to protect them. So they've quickly gotten on board. A lot of our coaches are doing the actual temperature screening themselves, and they document it daily of their student athletes when they entering the building. It's a big help for our department because we want to be able to make sure that we're treating that student athletes and preparing them to participate versus standing at a door and trying to get temperatures on everybody. So the coaches have been a really big help. They really do push the hand sanitizer, keeping their social distance. And then I think they've been really good models of wearing masks, face masks as well.
Okay. And, everything you've done to keep everyone safe has been tremendous, but obviously there's going to be situations like we had this fall with men's basketball where there was a positive COVID case. So what protocols were taken like after the COVID case to make sure everyone stayed safe and also to get the teams back on the court afterward?
Right. So when dealing with positive cases, because we know that we're going to do everything we can to help mitigate, but when they go out into the rest of the world, that there's definitely a possibility for someone contract COVID. And that's exactly what happened. And so when that happened, we went ahead and began to quarantine our student athletes. The CDC guidelines have changed since that happened, where we were quarantining them for 14 days. The CDC has now made a change that says, well, if they're asymptomatic, they can quarantine for up to 10 days, or asymptomatic, they can quarantine up for 7 days, and test out. But our university has been a little bit more conservative, and which is a good step as well, where we quarantine all our close contacts for 14 days, where they had to stay in their rooms. We made sure that they had appropriate food and water and necessities they needed to sustain life, as well as to sustain their academics, which was make sure everybody had working Wi-Fi and computers or whatever else they needed to make sure they were doing their classwork. And then they were all on board. They self-policed. They made sure that everybody stayed quarantined. We tested the entire team to see if anybody else had gotten COVID-19. And then at that point, with the people who do test positive, they have to go through an additional cardiac clearance through our primary care sports medicine doctors. So we set up those appointments and get them checked out, where they go through an extensive some testing and some questions, and we get EKG of the heart to make sure there's nothing going on from a cardiac standpoint. And then after the quarantine is over, we safely and slowly roll them back into participation, because we know we can't go from 14 days of no activity or minimum activity, whatever they can do in their space, to, all right, we're going to jump right back into where we picked up or where we left off. And so we incrementally increased the amount of time on court. We made sure that everybody's levels of hydration were well, and then we just continued to ramp up from there.
Okay, and I know that we've been very diligent, obviously at Dillard, and you're also one of the leaders of the athletic trainers in the GCAC. So, what are some things maybe we're doing at Dillard that you would like to institute maybe at the conference level, or that some of the differences?
And it's kind of different and difficult because, with schools being in different states, they have different mandates that they have to follow. So in the conference, what we're really trying to recommend is that, everybody wear masks when they're entering the building, that everybody's doing their pre-screening, and they should be per the NAIA. That everybody bring their own water, that nobody's sharing equipment like towels or anything like that other than maybe the balls that are on the court. Also that we're working to try to figure out a way that testing is consistent throughout the conference. That has a whole bunch of loops and hurdles of its own that has to go through not only the athletic directors, but then get approved by the presidents of the university. So that's something that we're working with the conference office with, and the conference commissioner, Dr. Barnes, to come up with a solid game plan that makes sure that everybody is consistently doing the same thing. So when we go to a different institution or different college, we know that they've taken the same safety precautions that we are taking here at Dillard University as well.
Okay. Have you previously worked at the NBA level? And did you call on any of your fellow colleagues back at the NBA level to see, because they had a very successful bubble environment, and I know it's a little different at our level because we couldn't have that exact bubble environment, but I know that they had a lot of great ideas that probably through conversations you could bring to us here. So.
Right, absolutely. Having that big network was extremely helpful because not only could we see what was working for them, they were able to drop some gems and some stuff that's not working. So between that and two of our actual sports medicine doctors from Ochsner actually being in the bubble, working there, being there daily, it was an opportunity for us to learn and get real-time information, just to say, hey, these are some of the things that they're doing in the NBA that we should definitely be doing, because there are some things that they have unlimited resources for and we don't, but some of the steps that we can take don't require that extra resources. So they're like, these things that we can do that are free. And for example, just like the bench setup and the wearing the mask on the sideline and just protecting yourself at all times. And it's like, these don't cost any money and these are working wonders for us. And then, we discussed a little bit about their testing protocols and how they got tested, and it would just be unrealistic for many universities, especially on our NAIA level, to handle and to do. But it was still good information to get from them.
For sure. And my next question is going to be, obviously, when we play here, it's, you can control things. But when you go to the opponent, you probably want to see what their guidelines are. Do you find yourself reaching out earlier to them to figure out before our games, like maybe many weeks in advance, to figure out what they're doing or to keep our team safe?
Absolutely. We want to know what they're doing. We want to know, do they have positive cases online? How are they tracking their close contacts? And what steps are they doing to mitigate their risk at their schools as well? Because we might not want to bring our school in an environment that isn't doing the necessary steps, because now we're going to open up our entire sports department or athletics department to their lack of care. And, there are decisions and discussions that are being made with our athletic director prior to going to take trips. If we notice that, hey, the school is not doing anything, it's the wild, wild west, they've had all these COVID cases, we have really good, informed, educated conversations, not just with myself, but we will bring in our team physician as well and say, hey, this is what we hear is going on. Probably not the safest environment to go in and play because we could potentially bring stuff back to our campus. And we've actually had to 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 cancel or postpone games because of it, because we just want to be safe and we don't want to go anywhere and then bring something back here and then risk the rest of our athletes being exposed to something because a different school wasn't taking proper precautions.
Okay, that's very good to hear. My next question is about, you hear it at the the NFL level, they're going with a tier system. Is that something we're doing here, or do we have a similar off the tiers, or is everyone like a first contact? So
we don't have a tier system here. Pretty much it's like if you test positive and you were at practice with that person that test positive and this all happened within 48 hours, at that point we consider you to be a close contact because there's a lot of heavy breathing. And we know droplets are getting all over the place out on the court when you're competing and there's a lot of close contact. So it's like, nah, we're gonna pretty much shut everybody down. Maybe if we get to a point to where we can test daily or something along that line, we can maybe change those protocols. But as of right now, it's like it's not worth taking the risk of the health of one of these student athletes or even one of the coaches or anybody that has to be involved with the game. And we just don't want to take those risks with people's health.
wonderful. So I know that your day has gotten a lot longer. Like not only so walk us through like your typical day. Say like when the athletes are here, walk us through your typical day. Like how like when you get up, say we're gonna have a practice that day. What's the first thing you do? Kind of walk us through step by step in order to keep athletes safe. Everything that you're kind of doing.
So what happens takes place even the day before. So before we leave the facility, we make sure everything is wiped down and clean. That we take all our necessary sanitation steps, and then we lock everything up because we know we've cleaned it all. When our student athletes are coming in, we know that there's going to be practice. We make sure that they fill out their pre-screening survey before they enter the building. What that gives us is a snapshot if anybody has any symptoms or is feeling sick or is, anything's going on with them. And then we take a look at it. We communicate with the student athlete prior to them coming to the facility. All right, hey, symptom free, come on by. All right, you noticed that you had XYZ symptoms. We have a discussion, see what's going on. We make a decision. It's like, okay, let's go ahead and send you to student health where we could possibly get you seen with our school doctors and nurses, and then get you tested, rapid tested there. Make sure that everything is on the up and up. If you're still having symptoms, we'll keep you away till you're free and clear, just because we don't want to take that risk of you maybe having a negative test but still coming here and you're sick, and then find out a couple of days later you might have COVID or anything. So it's not worth the risk. We'll make sure they're symptom free before they come here. Symptom free student athletes come in. We make sure they get their hand sanitizer while we're taking their temperature. Make sure that the temperature is under 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit. And then at that point, they would either come to the athletic training room if they have to do any scheduled treatments or rehabs or taping prior to practice, or they'll go to the locker rooms where they'll change and then hit the court. Between moving throughout these places, we make sure that we have hand sanitizer at every station, in the locker rooms and athletic training rooms, and the actual playing gyms. And we just try to make sure that we're doing everything to keep their hands clean, making sure that they're having their face mask on. They know they can't be in the building without the face mask. So just constant reminders, hey, let's keep doing the right things. And then it becomes a habit, so they know what to do. I mentioned scheduled treatments and rehabs now, though that's another addition to what we had to do. It used to be kind of, hey, free for all, walk in, we can have everybody in the space. But now with us wanting to socially distance ourselves, we have people on time schedules to where it's like, if you want treatment or you need rehab, you need to schedule it. And then we need to make sure that we don't have too many people in our athletic training facility at the time. And we're socially distancing, we're masking, and then we're trying to move people right along. one of the things that we try to look at as far as doing treatments, we don't want to commingle teams if possible. So we might schedule just women's basketball to come in to do treatment at one time, or men's basketball treatment to come in at another time, or track and field to just, and so we don't have to commingle the teams. So if somebody does come up with a positive test, it's like, well, where were you? Who are your close contacts? And they've been in an athletic training room doing rehab. They weren't doing rehab with somebody on another team, so it affects them like that.
Makes sense.
So then after practice, like you said, days get longer. We make sure we go back and sanitize everything that needs to get sanitized. Our team managers help out with sanitizing the balls and whatever other equipment or pads or anything that we were using. And then we lock everything back up.
And get ready for the next day.
Get ready for the next day.
Okay, my last question, and it's one that's probably on everyone's mind, is say if there was a positive COVID test while the team was on the road, what steps would be taken? What ways would we still keep the athletes that are healthy safe in that environment?
We do have a working plan that we would utilize at this point, because we don't have unlimited resources. We need to make sure that what we're doing is, one, safe, and then two, it has to be cost effective. It's not like we can Uber somebody down from Alabama back to New Orleans. Probably not cost effective. We can't put them on planes. So we've come up with some plans and some solutions where if that were to happen, we would make sure that that student athlete would stay in their hotel room until it's time to depart to go back to wherever we're going to. We would have a certain entrance and exit pattern of who gets on our mode of transportation, where they're sitting, seating charts, and then we would kind of self-isolate or quarantine that person with proper PPE, just to help mitigate any spread, as much mitigation as spread. We make sure that we have that person socially distanced to a greater capability as much as possible. And then we just we'll notify our team physicians and kind of they know what our plans are and they know what our protocols are. And if there's any change of circumstance along the way, we communicate with them and get what their best recommendation is. So we would do our best to isolate this person while we're on the road, but we understand that we have to eventually get this person back home or get this person back to the university. And we're going to take every measure as far as sanitation on the buses and just bringing them their food, whatever they need, and then just keeping them away from the team at that time.
Excellent. I think you are definitely a man with a plan, and I think the right person to be in charge of making sure that all our athletes are staying safe. I appreciate you taking the time talking with me. I think that there was a lot of, after we just got done with a very successful last semester, there's a lot of questions of how everything worked, the behind the scenes sort of thing. So I appreciate you taking the time talking with me. Thank you.
Not a problem, Joe. Thanks for having me. And, if any student athletes or parents have any questions, they should feel free to reach out to me. And we can set up a meeting if necessary, or we can take a phone call and just try to answer each and every question that we can to the best of our ability. And if we need to pull in our team physicians in, we can do that as well. But we just want to make sure that everybody is safe and feels safe, and so that we can continue to participate and have sports in the spring.
That's the most important part, that we have sports safely, because that's above everything else. It's safety, because there's no point in having sports if they're not going to be safe. Because we want everyone that attends Dillard to be able to leave here in the same state as when they arrived. So so I appreciate it, Mark. You have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks again, Joe. Have a good one.